So much of what we do is determined by the government. What goes onto our bodies or into our bodies as we rely on the vaccine because of COVID. How much money goes into the pockets of many Americans because of the perilous state of the economy. If you think about it seriously, so many activities that affect us and our families are determined or influenced by the government. Joining me to discuss some of the most pressing of these is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Congressman Jeffries, welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Sam, great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Let's begin with what's on everyone's mind, the riots, but that's history. But so many questions remain. The different treatment of Blacks and whites, what is referred to as the divided states of America, and racism that is denied by so many. Let us begin talking about that for just a minute or two.
Well, you know, this year started off rough with Insurrection Wednesday, a violent attack on the United States Capitol on January 6th that was incited by the President of the United States of America. Many of the people who breached the Capitol were white supremacists, racists, other individuals who don't believe in a free and fair society and our democracy, and they were there to engage in sedition and stop the Congress from undertaking our constitutional responsibilities and certifying the election of Joe Biden as part of the peaceful transfer of power. They failed. It is now incumbent upon the authorities to make sure that each and every one of those perpetrators is prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and at the same time, for the Senate to do its responsibility in conducting a comprehensive trial of the former President of the United States of America so that he can meet justice as it relates to the tremendous role that he played in inciting the violent attack on the Capitol.
Your Congress is divided on this, though. How do you think that will end? I don't mean in terms of whether Mr. Trump will be impeached, but I mean in terms of the GOP getting its act together.
Well, the Republicans are in the middle of a civil war right now because they sold their soul to Donald Trump. And for 4 years, they've been enabling his outrageous and corrupt behavior or burying their heads in the sand. But now the chickens have come home to roost as it relates to what took place with the violent insurrection and attack on the Capitol on January 6th, and they're going to have to live with the consequences. There are Republicans in the House and in the Senate who have said they've had enough and recognize that this is a bridge too far, even for those who had regularly enabled the president's corrupt behavior over the last 4 years. But there are others who are sticking with him. So Donald Trump may be gone. He's no longer at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, but Trumpism is still going to have to be something that we deal with moving forward. We're ready to work closely in a bipartisan way to solve problems that are before the American people, such as dealing with, in a comprehensive fashion, the COVID-19 pandemic, because that's not a Republican problem or a Democratic problem. It's an American problem. The pain, the suffering, and the death that we've experienced in our community, our city, throughout the country is extraordinary. It requires an extraordinary response. So we are looking forward to partnering with people of goodwill on the other side of the aisle if they want to solve problems. But if they want to continue to act like they are wholly owned subsidiaries of Donald Trump, we have no use for them.
Congressman, there are so many people who are reluctant to take the vaccine. What are you saying to those people? And there must be some people in your constituency as well.
It's a very important question, Sam, and I understand why there's great reluctance amongst many, particularly within the Black community, given the sordid history that we've had with vaccines and with medical abuse and experimentation, most prominently, of course, in connection with the infamous Tuskegee experiment. But I've got a lot of confidence in the science behind the vaccine, as well as in the public health professionals like Dr. Fauci, who have vouched that the vaccine is both safe and effective. COVID-19 is a deadly virus. It has killed over 425,000 Americans. So much pain, suffering, and death disproportionately amongst African Americans, Caribbean Americans, Latinos, immigrant communities, and in Indian country. Now, during the start of this pandemic, there was some on social media and through other channels of communication saying that Black people are immune. We can't get the coronavirus. This was actually a popular sentiment that was circulating in our community. It was scientifically baseless and irresponsible. And there are probably people who failed to take the necessary precautions as a result of this rumor. And so what I'm saying to folks in Brooklyn and throughout the city, and the Congressional Black Caucus has undertaken this effort, and I know Congresswoman Yvette Clarke has been a strong voice in this regard. Take the vaccine. It's safe and it's effective. And this doesn't end for any of us until it ends for all of us. And we all must do our part, not just to protect ourselves, but our loved ones, our family members, our neighbors, and our community.
Talked about baseless just now. A lot of people are saying that the impeachment efforts by you Democrats are baseless. Would you like to speak to that? And of course, I want to talk about the fact that there's a lot of fear that Republicans are saying they don't want to support because they are afraid of something or the other. But speak to this impeachment effort.
Well, we were left with no choice but to impeach the president a second time because the rioters, the domestic terrorists, the enemy combatants who violently stormed the Capitol on January 6th were there at his behest, all based on a big lie that Donald Trump perpetrated, which is that he actually won the election and Joe Biden lost, and the presidency was stolen from Donald Trump. That is why there were people in Washington on January 6th, and that is why several thousand of those people surrounded and or stormed the Capitol. And Donald Trump bears responsibility for that. And he must be held accountable in that regard. And so we're proceeding because in this country, no one is above the law, not even the President of the United States of America. The other argument that some of my colleagues in the GOP are making is that, well, he's no longer the president. But as you know, Sam, the only time that an insurrection is going to occur is at the end of a president's term. That's the definition of an insurrection, because you are artificially trying to hold on to power and seize it from the rightful winner of the election. That occurs at the end of a president's term.
Yes.
And so if we were not to proceed with this impeachment and conduct the trial, that would be sending a message to future autocrats that you can get away with lying about an election and then directing your supporters to try to halt the constitutional process for transferring power without consequence because people are going to argue you're out of office.
Well, let's talk about some of the excuses. The excuse that this impeachment is unconstitutional. You're an attorney and you can speak authoritatively about this.
The overwhelming majority of legal scholars, including many members of the Federalist Society, which is a right of center conservative legal organization, have concluded that an impeachment trial can be conducted of a former president. is historical precedent for that, including in 1876, where the Senate conducted an impeachment trial of a former Secretary of War who resigned as part of an effort to avoid being tried. A vote was taken by the United States Senate, and the decision was made that no, in fact, he could be tried, and that trial did take place. Interestingly enough, Thomas Jefferson, who was a former governor of Virginia, I recently learned was actually impeached after he left the office of governor. Of course, he, along with others, went on to write both the Declaration of Independence and, of course, the United States Constitution. And in the Constitution, there is no absolute bar indicating that only current presidents could be impeached and tried in the Senate. If the framers wanted to include that provision, as other states have done, they could have included that provision, and they did not.
Well, the outcome of the elections is clear. I don't think that can be overturned by Trump or anyone else. But let's talk about your vision. What is your vision, one, for the country, and two, for your constituency? Let's talk about your vision for the country, first of all.
Well, in terms of the country, our top priority right now is making sure that we crush the virus by ensuring that the resources are made available for testing, tracing, treatment, and vaccinations for every single person in this country, particularly in communities of color, such as those that I represent, that have been hit disproportionately hard. We want to provide direct assistance to everyday New Yorkers and everyday Americans who are struggling by increasing the direct payment survival check to $2,000 per person, and also making sure that we extend out the unemployment insurance benefit into the fall. It's currently scheduled to lapse in less than 2 months. We also want to provide assistance to those who are struggling with hunger and those who are facing the prospect of eviction and foreclosure. Those are national priorities, but also priorities that are very applicable to the communities in Central Brooklyn, Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, Bedford-Stuyvesant, Ocean Hill, Brownsville, East New York, Canarsie, the West End of Coney Island, and others that I represent in the 8th Congressional District, because this is one of the districts that has been hit the hardest by the COVID-19 pandemic. And we want to download the resources that the Biden administration is going to make available into our communities so we can get through this storm. And then finally, Sam, lay the foundation to reinvigorate the economy, create affordable housing so that no one gets pushed out and displaced, provide access to good paying jobs as part of our effort to create prosperity in every single zip code, not just for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected.
You are in a Congress that, as we said earlier, is divided. And unfortunately, many don't share your views. Many don't share your values. How do you respond to, well, you talked a bit about not sharing your views, but your values. I spoke to a friend of mine just before this program. They said, you visit her church. And I know you visit lots of churches in your community. But what do you say to the fact that a lot of these Republicans don't share your values?
It's a great question. It's a divided Congress, but we're no longer dealing with divided government. And so there's a moment of opportunity where there's a triangular alignment of values between the House Democratic majority, the Senate Democratic majority led by Chuck Schumer, and the Biden-Harris administration. And so there's a real opportunity to get things done. This is the first time that Democrats have had complete control of government since January of 2009, when President Barack Obama was sworn in. And so we have an opportunity to do some very important things. We want to raise the minimum wage to $15 per hour, because $7.25, which is the nationwide minimum wage, is insufficient. That's a poverty wage. We want to increase access to healthcare, particularly in vulnerable communities, because we've seen that the lack of a public health infrastructure is what made our communities so much more vulnerable. We want to invest in infrastructure in a way that fixes bridges, roads, tunnels, airports, and our mass transit system, but also regards access to affordable housing as infrastructure. We want to modernize our public schools. Schools like those that Principal Raiton used to serve, because we know that our children are our future. We want to get our children back in those buildings and equip them with the ability to pursue their dreams. So these are the values that we're articulating. We think these are American values, not partisan Democratic values. I believe that some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle will work with us, not all of them, to your point, Sam, but there is an opportunity for us to seize the moment that we're in, act decisively on behalf of working families and seniors and young people and middle-class folks, those who aspire to be part of the middle class, the poor, the sick, and the afflicted. And as Joe Biden has said, build back better in every single area.
Joe Biden also said that it is time to act. He was talking about the racial inequality, and a lot of what you spoke about just now, that fits the category of inequality, some of it racial inequality. It's time to act. What is your position on this time to act? And he did say now.
He's correct. We need to deal with the issues of injustice that have afflicted our society for a very long time. America is a great country. We've come a long way. We still have a long way to go. Systemic racism has been in the soil of this land since 1619, over 400 years ago. And there's still a long way for us to go in terms of making progress. We want to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act so we can transform policing in America so that it's fair and just, and that our communities aren't viewed like enemy combatants by people who are policing us with a warrior mentality. And instead, there's a cooperative relationship because law enforcement is deploying a guardian mentality. We want to pass the John Robert Lewis Voting Rights Act and end the era of voter suppression once and for all, so that one person, one vote is brought to life in all of our communities, not just in certain communities. And we want to create access to opportunity and wealth and home ownership in the African American and Caribbean American and Latino communities by promoting entrepreneurship, promoting small business ownership, promoting access to capital for investment and development. Because if we're going to truly turn the corner, we can't just have a civil rights agenda. We have to have an economic empowerment agenda as well. And that effort is going to be led by the Congressional Black Caucus in partnership with President Biden and Vice President Harris.
Congressman Jeffries, it's so good to have you here on Brooklyn 45. I wanted to ask you a question about that phenomena and that lady who is all over the country, the poet Amanda Gorman. In 30 seconds, how do you use her as an example for the many young people in your constituency and across this country?
She was incredible, and her performance on Inauguration Day should say to every young person, speak your truth, pursue your dreams, pour everything that you have into being the best that you can possibly be, and your dreams will come true.
Well said, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Thank you very much for being our guest on Brooklyn 45. And I'm sure that the hosts of our Young Academic Achievers, Alonta Right On, will be inviting you to say some things to the young achievers who we highlight in all of our programs. And in fact, we're going back to Alonta Right On now, who has sitting with her a young academic achiever. Again, thank you, Congressman Jeffries.
Thank you so much, Sam.
And now over to you, Alonta.
Joining us today, representing Clinton Hill in Brooklyn, New York, is Anya Eigner, a senior at Frank Sinatra High School of the Arts. Welcome to Brooklyn 45, Anya.
Thanks for having me.
It's been our pleasure. So, you're 17, a high school senior in your final year. So what classes have you been taking? What have been your favorite classes over the years and why?
I've been taking dance history, dance, journalism, and government. My favorite class has been dance.
Why dance?
I've had a passion for dance since I was 3 years old up until now. I believe that dance has created a venue for me to express my emotions in ways I haven't before. Also, I believe that dance has shaped me into the person that I am today, which is very punctual, more outgoing, friendly, and more expressive.
Mm-hmm. And you said dance has done this for you?
Yes.
Okay, so as a senior and academic achiever, what would you say has been your strategy for success over the years?
My strategy for success is to have great time management, being able to balance out my academic classes and my artistry, finding ways to create time to complete my work on time and having dance on the sideline as well.
You mentioned in a conversation too that punctuality and attendance is important in studying and tutoring and all that good stuff. Say more about that.
I think it's very important to have great punctuality, to be able to attend your classes on time, have great attendance, because that's important for colleges to see, and just overall in real life, when you have to go to a job on time, you'll get fired if you get there late. So I believe that punctuality is very important. Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of college, you've applied to several universities, correct?
Yes, I've applied to many colleges, and so far I got acceptances from Spelman College and North Carolina A&T University.
Mm-hmm. And your desire?
My main desire is to attend Howard University with the ability to major in nursing and minor in dance.
And why those fields?
I've always wanted to be a nurse. I've always loved helping people, and dance has been my passion since I was 3 years old. So I would like to continue to pursue being a dancer.
Okay, and you said you've been dancing since you were 3?
Yes.
So let's talk about politics, future voter. So we just ushered in a new year and elected a new president of the United States of America. As a student, and as I said, future voter, what would you ask of the Biden administration?
I would ask the Biden administration to promote dance in more schools. I believe that students should experience what I experience and have a different way and form to express themselves.
Okay. So you would want him to probably provide more funding for the arts. I hear that a lot.
Yes.
Okay, spoken from an artist. Spot on, because studies have shown the involvement in the arts is associated with gains in cognitive ability, critical thinking, verbal skills, teamwork, confidence, motivation, and so much more. Do you find that?
Yes.
Okay. So as a whole, what is one hope for the future under this new president?
One hope for the future for this new president is to bring the people together.
To bring the people together. Absolutely. The country is yearning for peace and unity.
Yes.
Conversations must be had to get there, but most certainly a necessity. So Anya, we ask that you keep in touch with us so that we can follow you in your college journey. We're all praying that you get into your school of choice, Howard University.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. And be sure to register as soon as you can because your vote counts, right?
Yes.
Thank you
for having me.
It's been a pleasure, my dear.
Growing up, my brother and I, we would play in Central Park often. We would imagine the waterfalls, the hills, and the swimming pool and the trees was our backyard. Central Park was and is still a very beautiful place. As many of you may know, having strolled along the lake, sunbathed, picnic, and simply cooled off after a long run around the reservoir track near 86th Street and 90th. But in 1855, this lush landscape was the home of a community called Seneca Village. And it was awesome, with its private homes, churches, schools, and stores. But what may surprise you is that 2/3 of the village, set in the lush green landscape of now Central Park, was called home by Afro-Americans. But as with all things in our Black history, the government acquired the land Seneca Village was built on using eminent domain to take this private property and convert it into public use. The Fifth Amendment provides the government this power if they provide just compensation to the property owners. And now, Seneca Village is a park instead of a thriving, stable investment into property, community, and people of color. My name is Regi Brown, and this has been a Black History Moment on Brooklyn 45 TV.
On behalf of our entire Brooklyn 45 team, I am Sam Tate.
Brooklyn 45 is a 501c3 not-for-profit, and we welcome your support. Check out our website, brooklyn45.com, and feel free to donate or share it with your friends and family. Have any comments or questions? Send them to our Facebook, facebook.com/Brooklyn45TV. If you have any questions or topics you think we should cover next, shoot me an email over at brooklyn45tv@gmail.com. Thank you again for watching.